Okay, great. Well, welcome everyone. I'm Eleanor from Run Wild Retreats, as I mentioned, and thank you for being here. And with us today, facilitating this call is Hallie Stewart. She's our retreat travel specialist. She's one of the people that you may have been talking to or would be talking to whenever you need help booking your retreat or just need a little support, have questions, preparing for your retreat. She is the member of our team who is here throughout the process to help you choose and plan and prepare for your retreat. So thank you, Hallie, for being here with us today.
Yeah, hi everyone. And if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and I can send you links and answer your questions as Eleanor covers everything. Or you can unmute yourself and ask us a question that way as well.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you, Hallie. So we will be monitoring the chat, as Hallie said. And then what I'd love to do with this call is definitely there's time for questions. We love getting questions and answering your specific questions. To kick things off, I am going to go over just some of the most common questions that we get, some of the most common topic areas. But then we'll open it up and take your individual questions today. So we're really excited to be offering the Moab Mindful Running Retreat again this fall. Since we offer this retreat 6 times a year. So it's really one that we just love to do, and because we've been doing it for so long now, we actually started doing it in 2014. We've just got it totally dialed, and we just love the trails that we frequent with this retreat. So I am going to kind of focus a little bit on the fall Moab retreat that we have coming up starting October 30th, which is my favorite time of year to be in Moab. Though of course, if that date doesn't work for you, we do also offer this retreat again at level 1 and level 2 in the spring, in March and April, which is also a beautiful time of year. But I gotta say that there's something really special about being in Moab in the fall. It is just spectacular with the colors. There's fall foliage with the cottonwood trees. And it's warm and sunny without being too hot. And it's just fabulous. So one of the things I want to talk about today is like the difference between the level 1 retreat versus our level 2 retreats. So one of the things that's important to know is that while we do run some of the same trails with both levels of retreats, the level 1 retreat is really catering to those of you runners who are maybe just getting into running or who don't run a lot of miles, but you just like to go out there for a few miles at a time. Or maybe you're coming back from an injury, or, some other setback or just a gap in your regular running routine or fitness or training, and you just don't feel like you have a high level of endurance right now. Our level 1 retreats are really ideal for your kind of runner because we really take a very relaxed run-walk approach to each of the runs. So the mileage does vary from day to day, as will the trails themselves. But what's really different is the way we approach the pacing of the runs. So if you fall into any of those categories of, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of like feeling more comfortable with fewer miles or, more relaxed pace or just kind of interspersing running with walking, then this is a great fit for you. The nice thing with the way that we work with our local running guides and our retreat leaders is that you don't all have to run at the same pace. And that's one of the key things for really helping to keep it relaxed, and so that you feel comfortable with the pace that we're going at. We always have at least one retreat leader and at least one retreat guide. It kind of varies depending on the size of the group. When we have more people, we'll have 2 guides. But that way you get a chance to kind of run or, run walk at your pace. And then we kind of regroup periodically throughout the run, and still get to all check in together as a group. But this way you don't have to all kind of run together. and that is really key for just creating a really nice personalized experience that lets you find your own pace and just enjoy things, in a way that it feels comfortable for you. The other thing to know about how we pace the runs is that we definitely allow plenty of time out there on the trail for you to also just really take in the whole experience of it. So that includes time that we stop and do like a mindful running clinic, and spend a little bit of time really working on some of the trail running techniques that are going to help you feel most comfortable on this kind of terrain, and also tend to parallel the techniques associated with mindful running. And these techniques are really about helping you find your most optimal running form and technique. And so it helps you have a more mindful experience on the trail, and also just stay relaxed and able to enjoy the running and not feeling like you have to be working the whole time. So your retreat leader is really there to provide a lot of that support and provide feedback. If she sees you doing something that might be hindering your efficiency or making the running kind of feel harder than it needs to be, she'll offer you some specific feedback, maybe about your stride length, or your posture, or some other thing that might just help you immediately start to find a little bit more relaxation, a little bit more efficiency, a little bit more comfort on the trail. The other thing to know about running in Moab is that the trails are really unique, in terms of the terrain that we run on. There's a lot of, it changes constantly between this porous sandy rock and then soft sand. So you're constantly changing between these hard surfaces and soft surfaces. And so it's really, really important to think about how you're pacing yourself and how you're adjusting your stride to account for this ever-changing terrain. So again, like the on-trail clinics and mindful running tips and techniques will really help you adapt your running to this strange running surface, which is a new experience for a lot of people as well. So those are some of the key things to know about how you pace on the trail. We do take breaks throughout the runs where you get to stop and drink some water, have a little snack. We provide snacks so that you can stay on top of your fueling throughout the run. And even though we're not covering a large number of miles on our runs, we are out there for several hours at a time. So that's why it's very important to stay hydrated and on top of your fuel. And then we also, of course, make sure that we stop at the most impressive scenic viewpoints, because there's quite a few throughout all of the runs. We get to see different views and different just mind-blowing desert features on each day of the retreat. So we want to make sure that we don't run past the best photo stops. So we do stop throughout the run so that we can take some fun pictures and have those memories to take home with us. So all those things really help just kind of break up the runs into manageable bits. And on some of the days, there are options where you can choose kind of a slightly longer route or a slightly shorter route. And so that is really, important for you to know that you have those kinds of options, and that you can kind of decide during the course of the run, hey, do I feel up for going the longer route, or do I feel like what I really need to do is choose the shorter option today? So we do point out when, on which days and on which trails you have those kinds of options. So, I'll definitely, take questions about that in just a moment. If anyone has any follow-up questions about, pacing or fitness and that sort of thing. But before we do, I also just want to talk about kind of the specific equipment that we highly recommend you bring, on this kind of a retreat. Since we are in the desert and we are on trails, your safety and well-being is always our number one priority. And so there's a couple of key pieces of equipment that we highly recommend on the trail. So apart from things like a hat to protect you from the sun and sunscreen, because it's almost always sunny in Moab, one of the things we highly recommend is that you have trail running specific shoes. Now, if you're used to running on roads, the drawback with road running shoes is that they typically don't have the kind of tread on the bottom that is going to be really well suited to running off-road. So if you go to any kind of like outdoor store or specialty running store, they will probably have at least a few models of trail running specific shoes. And if you're not sure which kind are made for trails, the staff there will definitely be able to help you identify them. But the main differences with a trail running shoe is that they tend to have more support in the upper. So this is the upper portion of the shoe. This is the soft fabric of the shoe. And this one actually has a special cover that goes over the laces, though that's not that common. It's not required, that's for sure. But it's going to have a little bit more support than a road shoe. And that is to help give you a little bit more stability, to help really hold your foot onto the last of the shoe. So the last of the shoe is the shape of the platform of the shoe. And a trail running shoe might have a little bit more room in it, just to help give you a little bit more comfort. And knowing too that you're going to be on steeper terrain sometimes, usually with a trail shoe. So there's often a little bit more room around the toes, which can be really comfortable. And the other really key feature to a trail running shoe is the tread on the bottom. Now, the trails, the rock that we're going to encounter in Moab, it's actually wonderful for trail running because it's a very grippy sandstone type of rock. And that kind of rock works really well with rubber footwear. So you're able to really get a nice solid grip when you're running on this sandstone with this kind of a shoe. So you'll feel really solid. You're not going to have any worries about slipping when you've got a shoe with a good tread and we're running on the kinds of trails that we'll find around Moab. So definitely be sure to bring a trail running shoe instead of a road running shoe. And my other tip would be if these shoes are new to you, definitely make sure you take them out for a run or two. Not necessarily to break them in because they should fit really nicely when you first get them, but just to make sure that they fit well. The other important piece of equipment is a hydration pack. And if you're really averse to packs, you can bring a waist belt as long as you're able to carry enough water for the runs that we're going to be doing. And so we typically recommend at least 36 ounces, or a liter and a half bladder in your hydration pack. So what we like about the hydration packs is that they make it really comfortable and efficient for carrying your water. The hose makes it easily accessible, so you don't have to go fish around for a bottle in a backpack or anything like that. Plus, they have pockets in the front that make it really easy to carry energy food, electrolytes, things that you're going to want to snack on during the run. And then the other nice thing about it, well, we don't have to worry about it so much in Moab because the weather is pretty reliable. The most that you'd want to bring in terms of extra clothing is maybe just a very thin shell jacket. But the nice thing about a pack is that it's going to have some extra cargo area to carry extra bits of clothing. Though I will say in Moab this time of year, sometimes at the very beginning of our runs, it's quite chilly and we're down in a shady canyon. And so then, as we move into the latter part of the run, it warms up a lot. So you might want to shed a layer. And then when you have a pack, then you've got some place to stash that extra layer, and you don't have to tie it around your waist or have it like hanging off you or anything like that. So having a pack is just a really, really convenient and versatile piece of equipment. So I would highly recommend that. So next I'll talk a little bit about the accommodation that we're going to offer. But before I do, I would love to see if any of you guys have questions about the runs, or whether or not a retreat like this might be a good fit for you. And then after we do that, then I'll be happy to tell you a little bit more about the lodging, the accommodations, and how we'll accommodate different dietary needs. So if you have a question, I'm just letting another person come in here and join us. If you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and give me a little shout out.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, hi, Conchetta.
Florence, I had a quick question.
Okay, we'll take one first from Conchetta and then Florence.
Okay, my question is, what are your distances?
Yes.
You talk about various distances, but you're not specific. You can pick some 5 and 10 miles, 6 and 12 miles, 2 and 5 miles.
Okay.
What distances are you talking?
Yeah, so with the level 1 retreat, the shortest run we do is about 4 miles, and then the longest distance is about 6.5 miles. So it's not a lot of distance, but what that equates to when we're on the trail is we're still out on the trail for like the short run, like on the first and last day. That's when we're out there for about maybe an hour and a half. But then Friday and Saturday, or the middle 2 runs, day 2 and day 3, we're still out there for between 2.5 to 3 hours, taking into account all the things that we were talking about.
And along with that, what pace? What's pace is from what to what?
Exactly. So
fit into this particular group.
Yeah. Well, so I can't attach a certain pace per mile, and I definitely don't want to do that, because you really do get to go at your own pace. And the level 1 retreat, there's no pressure at all to be able to run at a certain pace. And in fact, we even discourage running with your watch so that you can kind of not worry about the pace so much and just really, experience the place and really just enjoy the running as it is. So if I had to compare like a level 1 group to, say, the level 2 retreat, on average, the level 2, because we cover slightly longer distances, that one has a run that goes up to 9 miles. The overall average pace would be a little bit faster because we're not going to walk as much. Whereas with the level 1 retreat, we deliberately break up the running segments with run breaks throughout.
So could you please answer? Give me a pace, a range, please. Range,
you would like a number?
I would love a number.
Gosh, it's funny.
If people are running at a pace of 5 miles, whatever, I can't keep up with that. I run long distances, but I would run much slower than that. So that's what I'm trying to find out. The distances aren't a problem.
Yep.
The pace may be.
Well, I guarantee you with the level 1 retreat, you wouldn't have any problem at all with the pace. I mean, because I don't know, Hallie, can you help? Maybe you can do a little Google calculation for me. I mean, like if we cover 6 miles over the course of 2.5 hours, I'm not sure what that breaks out to, but maybe like 15 minutes per mile or something like that. And every trail is very different. Okay.
That's all I needed.
Okay.
All I needed. That's awesome.
Awesome. All right.
Nothing more.
Okay.
I know now that I can fit in this group, and I should continue listening to everything you say.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's exciting. Florence, did you have a question for us?
answered it because that was what my concern was. What the previous person was requesting was how much running, because I'm still kind of novice. I mean, I get out and run, but I'm not. Of course, I'm taking breaks, and that's what made me nervous. Was like, okay, at 6 miles, I can do it, but it might take a little longer, or if we just kind of what the options are with running. So you answered a lot with the previous lady. And are we able to, I guess, sign up? Like, is there a lot of people that kind of sign up by themselves, or they just meet, or is it more of groups? So they're following on Facebook, and I just see that's kind of a group of people. So I just didn't know, because if it was me, it'd be just me signing up just to experience it on my own. So that's, if you have any input on that part.
I sure do.
I'm going by myself also.
There you go. I'm so glad you asked that, Florence. There you go. I'm really glad you asked, Florence, because, yeah, most of the people who sign up, wouldn't you say, Hallie, are coming on their own?
Yeah, the majority of women who join our retreats are coming alone, and you get to know each other during the retreat.
Right?
Yeah, we really, we really just love, like, bringing together all these different women who, we all share this passion for running and the role it plays in our lives. And so it's amazing how quickly these connections and these bonds start to form. We start things off with a welcome meeting. So we start to get to know each other right off the bat. And then after the first run or two, it's really pretty amazing, how quickly we can get to know each other and just share these wonderful experiences together. So even if you come on your own, you're definitely not alone in the experience at all.
I have more questions.
Okay, sure.
I know people are coming as individuals. I get the distances. That's fine. Flying in and flying out, where are people flying in and out of? And how many people are usually in one of the sessions? I'm interested in the one at the end of the month.
Great.
And I'd like to know what's the max that you're going to take on the trip.
Yeah, well, I'll answer your question about the group size, and then Hallie, you can offer some of the travel logistics. And then I see Tina has her hand up. So after we answer those questions, then we'll go over to Tina. So the group size, our minimum group size is usually around 6 people. And then the most we have is 15 or 16 at the most. So it's usually works out to be around 10 or 12 on average. But not too big of a group. And yeah, with this group, I think with our level 1 group, it's going to be a nice, intimate, relatively smaller end of that scale. And then Hallie can provide some great travel tips for you.
Yeah, so the closest airport is going to be the Moab airport, but one of the airports that might be easier for you to fly into is the Grand Junction airport. It's a bigger airport, and from the Grand Junction airport, you can schedule a shuttle that will then take you to the Red Cliffs Lodge. Depending on the retreat, it sounds like you're interested in the one happening October 30th. So you'll see on that retreat page exactly what time the retreat starts. In this case, it's 2 o'clock, so we recommend arriving no later than 1:30. But those are the 2 main airports we recommend flying into, is the Moab airport and the Grand Junction airport. Another option is the Salt Lake City airport. You can also take a shuttle from Salt Lake City to Moab. It's just going to be a longer drive than the shuttle from Grand Junction.
Thank you.
Tina.
Hi. I'm lowering my hand. Okay, so I am a new runner. Can you hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up.
Yes.
I'm a new runner. I started running 5K this year, January, literally. So I actually can't run long distance yet because I am still training. So I'm curious in terms of training tips, as I now have a goal of lengthening my mileage. I am up to 3-4 miles, but that's like my max right now. So I want to take the next couple months training. So do you have any tips in terms of getting there and have a good time, so that I'm prepared and have a good time.
I think that's a great question. Thank you so much for that, Tina. I would highly recommend one of the safest ways to increase your endurance, building on that base that you've already established, even with running 3 to 4 miles at a time. Such a wonderful way to really build your base fitness, is to gradually increase that by interspersing segments of hiking. So like rigorous kind of walking or hiking in a way that helps you keep your heart rate up in that aerobic zone. But it gives your body a little bit of a rest from the high impact of running. So when your goal is to increase your endurance and just, really build up your body's, tolerance for longer periods of time on the trail, interspersing those walking breaks right from mile 1. Don't wait until you start to feel tired to add those breaks, but start to incorporate them right from the first mile. And then that allows you to go by time. So say if you're used to being out there for like 45, 50 minutes at a time, go by time and say, okay, every 10 minutes or every 15 minutes, you're going to take a 3 to 4 minute kind of hiking or walking section. And then gradually increase. Think about it in terms of time rather than miles, and it'll be a lot easier. And then that's just a great way to really build up your mileage and work on, build upon what you've got. So I would recommend trying that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Great question. Tracy.
Hi, Eleanor. I still get I think you have sort of set up with my devices, because I keep getting Dolomites pictures on my phone. So it's sort of like you have your own like marketing scheme going in my Google somehow. So you guys, if you ever do one of these trips, just know that the pictures from the trip will keep making you want to go back and do more trips. And maybe I'm just being lazy here, but it seems like it's mostly that you're doing the level 1 trips in Moab. But I love Moab, but would like a little bit further. So I'm sort of torn between: are you going to do any bigger trips in Moab, like longer running trips, or I don't want to do a level 1 trip if it's it's not going to be the right route for me.
Yeah, I totally understand, Tracy, especially since you ran with us in the Dolomites a few years ago, so I know you can handle it. Well, our level 2 Moab retreats would be great for you, because we get to enjoy all of like the same beautiful, amazing scenery with a little bit more running. So I think you'd really enjoy that. And we do have I'm not sure if we have any room left in the level 2 retreat this fall. It might be full, but next spring is open. We're going back in March 2023, and we definitely still have space available in the level 2 Moab running retreat. So if you want to get the most of your time in Moab, that would be a great option for you.
Okay, Tracy, we actually do have one spot left on the level 2 retreat this fall. So I will find you a link for that and drop it in the chat right now.
Okay, fabulous. That'd be awesome. Is there any, have you gotten any update from them about, I know they've just had tremendous flooding there. How's that impacting the ability to do stuff? It looked like the flooding was in town, but I assume it must have hit a trail or two.
Exactly. Well, we're going to be just checking in with our guides on the status of all the trails that we use. Though what I know of them, they're in areas where they're less likely to be impacted because they're higher up and have different drainage than down in town, which is kind of like, down in the very valley bottom. It's kind of like at one of the lowest points. A lot of where we run on the trails, we're outside of town at a slightly higher elevation. So, but also to knowing, the way Moab is, their tourism and trail access is such a huge part of the economy that I'm very confident that any trails that had been impacted by flooding would be repaired. by the time we go there in late October.
Oh yeah, it seems to me they'd be fixing the trails almost before they fix the commercial district. So
Yeah, exactly. It's
because of that.
it's the life down there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look at the links again. Like I said, I just had in my head that the Moab ones were just level 1, so I will check.
Yep.
This one and
You're
maybe
level
see you next
2.
month.
Awesome. Thanks, Tracy.
Bye.
Awesome. So yeah, just a little bit more, and I'm happy to have any other questions. If you guys want to raise your hand, that works, or unmute yourself. Let me know what questions you have. One thing I want to make sure to touch on is, the lodge that we stay at. We really love working with the Red Cliffs Lodge. If you've ever heard about how kind of Moab gets kind of crazy, it is quite the known destination for tourism, and October is one of its busiest times of year. But the wonderful thing with where we stay is we are 14 miles outside of town, and we stay in this wonderful lodge that's located right next to the Colorado River, and it's surrounded by these huge soaring red cliffs. And it was, a former family ranch, and so they've got horse pastures, and it's away from all kind of the craziness that is happening in downtown Moab. And it really gives us that space to just get quiet, find a little bit of peace, and really enjoy this beautiful place without getting tangled up in any of the crowds that tend to accumulate in certain parts of the area, like in Arches National Park and that sort of thing. And so the Red Cliffs Lodge just offers us this beautiful, beautiful location for our retreat. And we do have different package types available. So even if you're traveling by yourself, you can book a shared room package, and we can pair you with another person who's also traveling solo. Or if you want to have your own room, you can book a private room package, and that way you get a whole suite to yourself. And so we're really pleased to be able to offer you both of those two options. And that's really the main difference between the two options. Otherwise, your retreat package includes all the meals that you would need, starting from day 1's dinner through lunch on day 4. So that way you just don't have to worry about, where you're going to eat, when you're going to eat. We kind of take care of all that for you so that you can just focus on the running and enjoying yourself. And then, of course, in our intake forms, there's a space there where you can indicate if you have any specific dietary needs. And we make sure that we go over all that intake information and plan accordingly with the restaurants to make sure that they can accommodate any allergies or specific dietary needs that you may have. Let's see. Any questions about sort of the retreat package or the lodging, or anything about that? Anybody got a question there?
And I just want to add on to what you just said, Eleanor, if that's all right. So staying at the Red Cliffs Lodge is really nice. Like Eleanor mentioned, it's in a beautiful Red Rock Canyon along the Colorado River. But there are also opportunities during the retreat where you will get to see downtown Moab. So you're not going to totally miss out on Moab. There's a yoga class that is specific for runners that you'll be attending during the retreat. And then also some nice restaurants that we visit in town as well. And then one other thing to address the crowds is particularly this October 30th through November 3rd retreat is that's going to be a Sunday through Wednesday, so it's a perfect way to visit Moab, avoiding all the weekend crowds.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Hallie, because fall is just so spectacular in the desert. As I said, before I started going to Moab, I thought, well, what could fall possibly be like in the desert? Like, what would be different? I didn't really appreciate just the richness of the flora that is in the desert. And there's actually like so much color, like I said, especially with the orange cottonwood trees that are just like brilliant colors this time of year. And we almost always have just blue skies every single day. It's incredible. So, it's a great time of year to be there. And yeah, especially that last weekend in October into the beginning of November, it's like the tourists are gone. The place just kind of clears out and we've totally got it to ourselves. It's really, really wonderful. Let's see, a couple of other things that are just really helpful to know. If you're coming from sea level or lower elevation, you are coming to about 4,000 feet in elevation in Moab. And so you may sort of notice the altitude a little bit. But you don't have to worry about that because everyone is affected to a certain degree. So we also make sure that we really emphasize just how to stay hydrated in the desert. And we provide like electrolyte packets and that sort of thing so you can stay on top of your hydration, so that you can feel really awesome, throughout this retreat. Because really our goal is for you to be able to go home feeling more refreshed and energized than when you got there. It's incredible what just a few days of connecting with other women and spending time together on the trails can really do for just helping you recharge and just get a little bit re-inspired. Especially with our level 1 retreat groups, we tend to see a lot more women who are kind of coming back to running after some time off and really getting re-inspired to do it again or to make it a priority again. And we just, there's so much sharing between the women in terms of what inspires them and what supports them in their running and how to make it all work and prioritize it as part of their self-care and their daily routines, stress management. And that's really awesome to see. It's just so awesome to kind of hear all these great stories, and see the outcomes. And then, the last thing I really want to emphasize is just how, we here at Run Wild Retreats, we're really all about creating a whole mindful experience. So off the trail as well as on the trail, and that to us is a lot about what goes on behind the scenes that hopefully, affects you without you even being aware of it. And by that, I just mean that we've put so much care and planning and design into the overall flow of the experience and making sure that you get enough time on trail, but not too much, and, all these different things, so that you really can just feel supported and relaxed and able to go with the flow, and not have to worry about like rushing from one thing to the next or worried about where you got to be when or any of that sort of thing. But really just give you the space and time that you may not have in your everyday life back home to just focus on your own self-care and your well-being. And so one of the things that we hear so many women say that they appreciate about these retreats, not only the great trail running and the camaraderie and the support, but it's also just the free time. And there is free time on the day 2 and day 3 afternoons where you really just get to like unwind a little bit before the next part of the day, and do those things that really nurture and nourish you, whatever that might be. So no worries at all. Just to emphasize, we do have room available still in this fall's retreat, especially October 30th to November 2nd. And it's a great opportunity to join us before the price increase that's going to happen in 2023. I'm sure it's not very surprising that the costs of things like hotel rooms and guiding and transportation and meals is going up. But the good thing is about this fall is we've been able to lock in our rates for this year kind of before the inflation took hold. So this is a great opportunity to kind of get and enjoy this retreat at the lower price before the rate has to go up a little bit in 2023. So it's just one thing to consider, that this is a great opportunity to enjoy that. And just so you know, we do expect this retreat to start to fill up pretty soon, but right now we still have both types of room packages available. But if you wait, then you might not have your first choice of room package. So that's why I'd recommend sooner rather than later. And of course, after this call, we'll send you a follow-up email with just a few, bits of information and the link to where you can see the full itinerary for the retreat and read more about it if you want, and see all the highlights and details. But I'm happy to answer any other questions that any of you may have. We've had some great questions here so far. Some people have had to hop off and move on to other things, but any other questions come to mind? You guys have been awesome. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Hallie, for answering some of our questions as well. Like I said, we'll send a follow-up email where you can read a little bit more about it and look it over. And then, of course, Hallie shared in the chat too our contact information where you can reach her by email or phone if you want to talk specifically about whether or not this retreat is right for you. Tell us a little bit more about your running background, what maybe concerns or limitations you have. We have those kinds of conversations all the time, and it's definitely our goal to make sure that this retreat is a great fit for you, for what you're interested in, what your fitness level is, and what you want to get out of it. So we're definitely here to answer any and all of those questions. So if there's no other questions for us here today, we will sign off, but we'd really welcome the opportunity to run with you in Moab. Thank you so much, ladies.
Eleanor, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye.